Welcome to the Contagious Code podcast, where we dive deep into code, learn practical skills, celebrate the beauty of engineering, and eliminate imposter syndrome. I am Tejas Kumar, and I've been building on the web for over 20 years at places like Vercel, Spotify, Zeta, and more. Today on the podcast, my guest is Chinar Movsisyan, who is the founder of Feedback Intelligence. Chinar has a background spanning many years in data science, machine learning, and AI, and has a significantly strong grasp of the discipline. Chinar really knows her stuff, and that becomes evident in this episode. In today's episode, we're going to talk about that. Chinar has created end-to-end solutions for a variety of AI clients in the past portion of her career, and that's where we spend most of our discussion today. Is we literally talk about like, hey, if I wanted to create and deliver an end-to-end AI solution, maybe for fraud detection, a language model, whatever it may be, how would I do that? And we literally just go like end to end. Chinar is also the founder and CEO of Feedback Intelligence, a company that helps companies and products understand why users do the things they do. We go more into detail about that because really at the base of this website is a very powerful AI model that Chinar and her team create. It is an absolutely jam-packed episode about AI. And especially if you have no experience in AI or how to go about creating an end-to-end AI solution, this episode is for you. I learned a ton from it, and I'm sure you will as well. Now, this is very separate to my day job, and the way we can make this podcast sustainable is through partners and sponsors. Let's take a moment and acknowledge them. The Contagious Code podcast is partnered with Code Crafters. Code Crafters is a great way to level up your coding by having you pick a tool like Git or Redis or Docker and a programming language like JavaScript or TypeScript or Python or R or Julia, whatever. And then they have you build the tool like Git in the language that you choose. And by doing that, you get better at both the language and the tool. It's a really great 2-for-1. They have a generous free tier, but if you want to start paying, you can get a massive discount, 40% off, using the link in the show notes. That's tej.as/codecrafters. Thanks so much for sticking around. Here's my discussion with Chinar Movsisyan. Chinar, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. This podcast episode has been a long time coming. I mean, we met in San Francisco almost a year ago, maybe a few.
Yeah. You were doing some event. Yeah, it was like May or April, something like that,
Yeah,
right?
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was doing a demo of RAG, and we were talking about AI,
Yeah.
and you showed up and you
Yeah.
were very into it, and then you told us about what we're going to talk about today, which is feedback intelligence, which I'm very excited about. But before we maybe get ahead of ourselves, I'd love to have you briefly introduce yourself to the listeners and have them get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm Chinar, the CEO, the founder of Feedback Intelligence. Before Feedback Intelligence, like this is a joke. Usually I say like I was in AI before things got generative, which is like, I mean, people are like everything is about generative AI, like Gen AI. I'm an Gen AI engineer. Recently, I saw that on LinkedIn. Like as a position, I was like, "What is that? What is Gen AI engineer?" Like it's just that like the same function, the same probability statistics, everything. So yeah, my background is technical. I started with applied mathematics and informatics. I love digits. I really love solving complex problems with math. And yeah, applied mathematics. And then I did master's in information technologies. Then I did another master's in computer science and systems. And then PhD machine learning in healthcare, cardiovascular problems, identification and classification. And in general, I have delivered more than 10 AI solutions from A to Z, like from data collection, model building, and then training, and then deployment in production for different applications like drones, satellites, surveillance cameras, and also healthcare.
This is so cool. Like everything you said is just so exciting because
Yeah.
there's a lot of listeners of the podcast who really appreciate the technical detail. That's why this podcast exists. And also, there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who frankly have a ton of imposter syndrome. Like they hear those things and they go like, "Oh, I don't know how that's built." And like just the ability for anyone to do end to end of
Yeah.
anything, right, is so special. Like for example, there's a lot of front end engineers who dream of being able to build a UI, but also then host it wherever they want with high availability, like the whole life cycle of a web application.
Yeah.
That includes front end, back end, DevOps, data engineering, all of it. And what you've mentioned, that you've delivered these AI solutions end to end, I think that's so cool. And I can't wait to dive into all of it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's super cool when I think if you touch all these like modules, let's say like data collection, data cleaning, data curation, and then labeling. I remember when I was working, like that was my first job. It was a project. We were doing like object detection, and then the idea was like gather a lot of data, high resolution images, and just tag. And we were doing that. I was an engineer. I was doing the AI stuff, like what kind of model we need, like AlexNet. I remember that was a while ago, like 10 years ago or something. And we were doing labeling, like manually, we were tagging all of the images. But that was cool because like when you tag, okay, I have to do this because like convolutional neural network works this way, filters work this way. That's why we should tag this way. That's super cool that you like get into all of these details, and because of that, you are able to understand the core of this whole AI thing.
Totally. Yeah, we just shipped an episode with Dan Bachman, who is just an absolute expert with specifically image generation and vision,
Okay,
computer vision tasks. And
very
it's
good.
such a deep dive. Like he explains diffusion models like it's nothing. And it's one of the best episodes of the podcast, if you ask me. And so I'm excited
Yeah.
to dive in this with you. Um,
Okay.
I'd like to start with a very basic question. And this is kind of what we do on the podcast is we start like really basic, like really high up, and then we dive deep over time.
Mhm.
You mentioned you saw this job title on LinkedIn, GenAI engineer. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious, could you maybe expand on that? Specifically, let me just ask it like this. What is an AI engineer? And has that changed since GenAI became
Mhm.
a trend?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I I would say there is no like AI engineer, you know. There is a machine learning engineer, definitely. There is a deep learning engineer. Deep learning meaning where we try to work with neural networks. So in machine learning, we just work with, let's say, like regression tasks or classification, super simple, like. But when it comes with neural network, it's already deep learning. This is how like we had that. It was like this is not an invention. But now this is about like we see that this Gen AI engineer. With to be frank, I don't know what is the definition of that. Like Gen AI engineer, it doesn't mean that they invent a new foundation model like large language model or like vision large language model or VLLMs. But what they do, what I am seeing, it's all about utilizing already existing models, like let's say OpenAI API or Claude or DeepSeek, these all things, and it's called GenAI engineer, right? What they do some prompt engineering, like they try to like tune according to their business needs, like what should be what they are interested in, and then they use these APIs. But still, it's called like Gen AI engineer, which is like it's not so like it is engineering, but it is not like you don't go into like architecture. You even don't know what's
Right.
happening in the backend side, right? It's just an API, which is like any software engineer can do that. Like, but we call it Gen AI engineer. That's how I see that things going into that. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's almost building on top of machine learning engineering. It's not so much creating the Gen AI models, it's using them,
Using.
which is yeah, which is so interesting. Which also like a front end engineer probably use it. No, they create front ends. I can see the dissonance here for sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your thoughts on. You mentioned you've delivered multiple
Mhm.
quality, full stack, like full end to end AI applications, and you mentioned steps like data collection, curation,
Mhm.
labeling, etc. Um, what does it look like? Like if somebody listening wants to create an end to end AI application, what does that life cycle look like?
Yeah.
And I can maybe draw a parallel here with UI engineering, right? You just like um, you have a Figma document, so it starts, or even like if you have an idea, you put it in Figma, you prove the
Uh-huh.
concept, then you like create a directory, npm install, get some React, and so there's this whole step, and then at the end
Yeah.
you add Sentry for monitoring. So like that's the sort of end to end for a UI application,
Yeah.
which I'm sure we're both familiar with. If it was an AI application, like this detecting like heart disease,
Mhm.
where does
Mhm.
one start, and how does one arrive at that end?
Yeah. That's a very I like that process a lot, even though right now we are not doing that much. Well, there are companies they are doing, but usually we just use some APIs. But it was super fun before. Um, what usually is being done? So I would say there are three steps. The first one is all about data. Like data is super important to train any AI, like let's say AI model. And then it's about like architecture. So you choose what kind of model you want to use and why. And then the optimization stage, right? These are three like buckets I would split this whole process into. In the first phase, where it's like data collection, well, data can be anything, right? So in order to, well, the success depends on the data, the project success, like how accurate, how good will be that model. But data depends on the business definition. So in my experience, what I have seen in my previous projects, the task was like, we want to object detection, like let's say disease detection, tumor detection. Okay, well, that's a very broad task. What kind of tumor? Do you have any examples of real world like tumor where the model will be should detect? So give me those examples. And usually it's super hard, especially from like very uh like in highly regulated industries, or like where data is super limited. It's like super pen and paper situation. It's hard to get data from the business stakeholders where the AI will be used. And if you are lucky enough, they will give you some samples. Fine, you will look into that. Okay, I see like patterns, I can understand. That's how like literally you look into that like one by one. And then you try to get more data like similar to that, to those samples, so you have as much representative data as possible to outside of world where AI will be used. Because if you collect something which is not similar to where AI will be used, it will not be accurate.
Interesting.
Like imagine you teach a kid to understand this is an orange. Like these are the possible oranges that you will see in real world when you go to grocery store, and then the kid goes and the only like fruit he can see is like an apple, and he will be,
Right.
what is this? Like, I never seen this. This is something that I never experienced. Or um, let's say a green orange. Like, let's say there is, I assume there will be some green oranges, I don't know. But whatever. Like the thing is that you have to train as like to train all those patterns that will be outside there, so it will recognize. So this is the first super important, very hard, very manual back and forth process where we all engineers um we face that when we start building any
So
AI.
you collect a bunch of contextual data and you have to
Mhm.
make sure it's clean. The principle garbage in, garbage out, that applies here very heavily.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
once you have this beautifully, but I have they say, and a lot of people say this like in pop culture, like
Mhm.
ChatGPT, the model GPT 3.5 or 3 was trained on, even GPT 2 was trained on the entire internet. This is what they say, right?
Yeah.
And the entire internet is not full of clean data. So then is it a fair assumption then that as part of the very closed training process from OpenAI, as part of the process, you get a bunch of data from the internet and then clean it and then use that for
Structure.
training? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
I see.
Definitely. Data cleaning, like pre-processing is the key. If you have done that, if you
Interesting.
have that, and making it representative over time is also important, because like real world is changes, right? Like inputs are changing a lot. Like
Yeah.
from what my experience is coming from computer vision, where I have faced with these like real world examples in like in surveillance. You have a camera, like let's say it's a surveillance camera, and the because of the buildings, because of how people wear, the haircut, everything, because of that, it like you have to make it representative enough. Like let's say
Wow.
like the neighborhood is when we deploy a camera, neighborhood is a kindergarten. So a lot of kids are around, like there should be some parking, like their parents, they drop off them. But then let's say it changes. It's not a kindergarten, it's a like, I don't know, what is that? It's a restaurant. It's a different like environment. And the camera, the AI over there, surveillance camera should be trained on those examples as well. So it's a super different like environment.
Interesting. So this step sounds very difficult for the reason being it's so manual. Like you as a human have to really like look at everything, make sure it's clean, and then continue to make sure it not only is clean but fits its context where it will be used.
Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of like you were saying, the green
Continuously,
orange.
yeah. Continuously gather new patterns, new information that is relevant to the outside world where AI is being used, and then fit it into the model again and again. Like it's like continuous learning, continuous like optimization, which is the key in my experience of any successful AI project. If you don't have that stage, it's gonna be bad. Like you will be at POC stage rather than in a full production stage where that is the AI is really being used rather than
Useful.
just yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you get all this clean data, and and
Mhm.
and then what? And then there's so from from what little knowledge I have, or what little knowledge exists in the world, that is readily accessible to like everybody. From there, you have all this clean data, and you run it through some type of algorithm, a deep learning algorithm. And there's this is where you sort of set appropriate hyperparameters such as the learning rate, the epochs, and you have the right GPUs
Mhm.
to accelerate the
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
And then you essentially expose or the algorithm exposes the machine to this is the input, this is the expected output. And over time, the machine makes predictions that are inaccurate, but this accuracy grows, or the loss is less over time. Is this accurate, or am I jumping steps in this sort of like line from beginning to end?
Well, after that data cleaning process, let's call it the data preparation process, you already have the data, it's labeled, so it's supervised learning. Supervised learning meaning you teach the model, this is orange, this is not orange, or like
Right.
this is the tumor, this is not the tumor. So you have that labeled data, you split that into training, test, and evaluation sets, and then you use that for training purposes. For training purposes, you already have like you need to know like what kind of model you have. And in computer vision, in my experience, so there's like YOLO, very well known. YOLO has like several. Um,
YOLO,
uh,
like you only live once. What?
you only look once.
Okay, what that is that an
Yeah.
algorithm or what is that?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
it's a model. YOLO computer vision, very known, well-known model. So if you
Awesome.
look for, yeah, YOLO is the model. So that's what we have been using a lot. And yeah, so you only look once. It's a state-of-the-art model, and it's for object detection. Very cool model, and there are a couple of papers, and it had YOLO first, second, YOLO for tiny objects, meaning like you have very high resolution images and the objects are super tiny and you need to detect them. So let's say we choose that, and then we train it. We go training process, we have GPUs, we tune these like hyperparameters like loss function and everything, and then we test it out. So why we split that into three buckets: training, evaluation, and testing. During the process, when we tune the hyperparameters, like learning rate, what is being done? We use that evaluation set to tune that, like to test out whether that first, let's say, learning rate is 0.2. We test out whether it's good or not, and then we go back and we train, and we come back and we test it. After we
How
have the
sorry to interrupt you. How do you test it? That's interesting.
Yeah, we in evaluation set we have like these samples of data samples where we have the labels, right? We have the input, we have the correct answer. After having the first iteration of the training, where we know that the learning rate was 0.2 or something, X number, we go and we test with that. When learning rate is X, how the model, that first iteration when we trained, how the model behaves on this data set. We know the correct
Interesting.
answer, we run the model, we get the output, and we compare. The correct answer is orange, but model in like 80% of cases is not able to identify this orange.
Right. Okay.
We compare that.
So you run you actually train the model like one
Mm-hmm.
time with
Mm-hmm.
some hyperparameters you set.
Yeah.
You get like an actual model. So you get a bunch of weights as the output, and then
Yeah.
you run inference on this. You literally like test it, and then you
Yes.
get the output, and you go, wow, okay. But like that training does that take a long time to get that first iteration?
It depends on the GPUs. It depends how much data you have. It depends on what kind of architecture is that. Like there
Okay.
are a lot of there are cases where in computer vision convolutional neural network, like there can be a lot of like filters, meaning like processing of those images. So it really depends. But like let's say like 30 minutes. Like we have really good
Okay.
GPUs. We don't have much data, but we have, and also we can use pre-trained models. So YOLO, they have already like existing weights where we take it and then you continue
You add a few layers.
the training process. So this is the
That's
first
crazy.
and this is when what I'm saying is for super simple model. Now if we think of this chat GPT or these large language models, like foundation models, it's like that's why it takes, I don't know, a year, months to train something, to gather data. Like it's a huge work that
Yeah,
these
and
people
you have
do.
to make sure the hyperparameters are like proper before you embark on one of these like multi-month trading processes, right? Because
Yeah,
after months,
that,
you may end up
yeah,
with some nonsense.
yeah. That's why fine tuning. Like when people say, "Oh, we fine tune an LLM internally," that's a very like risky work. It's super risky. Like especially for like normal companies, not these foundation like or big tech, like they already know, like OpenAI or DeepSeek or Anthropic Cloud, they already know like things. But as a normal company, in order to do that, it's super risky, and you have to be very like careful with the data, with the process, the GPUs, and everything.
Crazy. Okay, so you then train your model one time, you get a small like you get an output, and this you run an inference, and you test this against the evaluation data set.
Mhm.
In the scenario that it's really far off the evaluation data set, you then adjust your hyperparameters and keep trying until you get some promising results, right?
Yes, yes. Until
Okay.
you get like some results where it's good, and then when you have that, you go to the test set and you test the model. Like that's the final model on the test set. Why this is happening? Why you have eval and test sets? Because on evaluation set, you already tuned your hyperparameters, and you can't use the same data set uh, to test out the model performance and say, okay, we are done. Like the hyperparameters are tuned, it's good enough to use this model. But you use the test set to test out the final model.
Because the model hasn't seen quote unquote the
Yes,
test data set.
yes.
Okay.
It is not biased. It is like never seen, and it's like if you are getting good results on the test set, that's very good.
It's a good indicator that your model is
Yeah,
ready for prime
yeah,
time. Wow, we got so far. First, okay, I need to interrupt here and just say this is so
yeah.
cool. This is probably one of the best conversations. Like sometimes on the podcast, and listeners tell me this, they get a feeling for when I particularly enjoy a conversation, and this is definitely one of them. It's so cool. I think your experience is very clear in your ability to break this down. Sort of like you remind me of the great scientist Dr. Richard Feynman, who said a true mark of someone's understanding is their ability to just reason about it in plain English, and you do that very well. So thank you.
That's funny. Yeah.
Um, so now you have a model that works.
Mhm, mhm.
What's next in this straight line from I have an idea to I'm delivering an end-to-end
Yeah.
product?
So yeah, like in the initial conversation, definitely like the people, like, let's call it customers. Like, customer is coming, a person is coming. I want a object detection model. I want it to deploy in this environment. We get those like parameters where the model will be used, and then we gather data, we train the model, we test it out, we are happy, everyone is happy, the results are good. Now it's deployed in production. Like, it is really like it's working in the camera settings, right? And then now, this was one of the challenges that I was facing when I was an engineer. And here it comes. At the moment, we have a lot of evaluation tools, we have a lot of monitoring, observability, all of this, to streamline the process of, okay, the model has 99% accuracy. Once I trained, I test out on the test set, everyone was happy. But once it goes to production, you don't know, like, definitely it's not going to have 99% accuracy. Like,
Right.
illumination, like new patterns, like, of course, customer doesn't know, like, and it's okay that they don't know all of the possible scenarios that it's happening in, like, on the street. But what they know, like, this is what we know, limited information, use that information. The key is to have that streamlined process where, like, you get information from outside world where the model is working every day, and you are able to, like, understand, qualify, and quantify how your model is performing, where are the drifts, why it's happening, like, explain it, that's the other question, and then decide how often we are gonna retrain this model, how often we will gather new data, how we will clean that, and then feed that into the model, make it better, deploy the new one.
Wow, and that's it. It's done. It's the AI model lifecycle.
Lifecycle, yes.
That is so
The
cool. Now,
yes.
mhm,
Optimization process, like, yeah.
fantastic. So this is the technique you've used over delivering all of these products end to end,
Yeah.
and it's first of all, I think it's so cool how you're just so familiar. It shows that you've done this so many times, which leads you to now do this again, but for yourself, founding Feedback Intelligence.
Yeah.
Is this indeed is this the same is this sort of the same path for Feedback Intelligence? And after you answer that, I'd love to talk about what feedback intelligence even is, because I think now people are starting to get very interested in that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good question. And when I started Feedback Intelligence, well, before that was not a Feedback Intelligence. The name of the company was different. We called it Monot. So I told you my background. So I have experience. I have experience in delivering these computer vision models. And when I was an engineer, the problem that I was facing was the following. I told you, like, the process was that I could do some train a model, 99% accuracy, perfect, it's good. Once it goes to production, definitely there are cases that it's not working well. Like, and when I deliver that, I never say, like, it's going to be 100%. We are happy. We are done with this model. No, once the model goes to production, the real work starts there, because it's like a lot of challenges. The model is not working. And then the model goes to production. In my experience, like, these business people, customers, people who are not super technical, they were coming back to me and saying, well, like, the model is not working well. I was like, yeah, I know. It was expected, like, I never said that it's going to be 100%. But that feedback, that statement, Chinar, the model is not working well, was not enough for me to make it better. And I always had that back and forth. Hey, give me more data, give me examples, tell me where the model is not working well and why it is important for you. Like, what is success means for you, and this back and forth. And they could say that the model is not working well, maybe calling me or sending an email. I mean, that information, that feedback, the form of way you say that, it's not enough at all. Like, I can't
Yeah.
do anything with that information. So for me, it was always like this gap between technical people, not technical folks, like business stakeholders, customer-facing folks, where like how we can fill this gap, like how we can do something to automate this feedback loop and make it better, make it like align these stakeholders to definitely we all have the same goal: successfully deliver production AI like at scale. That's the high level goal. And then the second goal is make sure that AI solves the business problem. Again, my metrics, my data science, AI engineer metrics, F1 score, accuracy, no one cares about that. Like the people who are using outside there, they just want to get the output that aligns with their needs, like that solves a problem, right? You use ChatGPT, you ask a question, you are not getting the right answer, you follow up with several questions, all of this process goes on and on. But maybe these engineers at OpenAI, they got like 100% accuracy, but it doesn't mean that I'm getting the right answer. Like this was
Yeah.
kind of the problem. Like when I look back, like this computer vision time, I see like the same thing is happening now. That's why like we started with some different idea, we pivoted, now we call it feedback intelligence.
Interesting. And so is it feedback? So let's talk about feedback intelligence now.
Okay.
And what it is.
Mhm.
Let's just have you describe it. You kind of give the origin story here, but if somebody's here listening to this conversation and they want to know what is feedback intelligence, what is feedback intelligence?
In one sentence, I'll say it's an analytics and optimization tool for LLM-powered products like chatbots, copilots, voice agents, chat agents. Now we call digital workers as well. So for digital workers, so everything there, it analyzes, tells like what users want to achieve, why they are not happy when they interact with that LLM powered product, and what to do to fix that, what to do to make them happy and make the interaction effective.
Interesting. I would love to. Can we like strawman this a little bit by having like an example LLM
Yeah.
powered I love your usage of the word LLM powered product. It's such a catchy term. So let's say I have an LLM powered product, right? That has it uses an LLM
Mhm.
to to present like movie suggestions, you know,
Mhm.
but with natural language. So I type in like superhero movie and it does a bunch of like vector search and it comes back
Mhm.
with here's a
Mhm.
little people use ChatGPT for this, right? Um,
Yeah.
and someone asks for let's say a superhero movie and they get back I don't know a Wild West movie. They're unhappy with it. Practically, how can I use feedback intelligence to make this
Mhm.
experience better for the user?
Yeah. So you have that movie suggestion app. It's done on top of some LLM, and bunch of users
Yes.
are using that, right? So as a builder, someone who built that solution, your question to make it better will be, what was the last movie that my LLM powered product suggested to users? What
Yeah.
they were asking and what it suggested. That question I think is very relevant, very like you have to answer, you have to have the answer to that question, right? So that's what we do. Feedback intelligence sits like in between your users and your solution. It analyzes what users are asking. So in practical example, every like whenever someone is interacting with your movie app, it will tell you X user just asked for a superhero movie, and they asked 3 times about the same superhero movie with different ways, and they left the chat or the app without watching it. So this is urgent. Like go and check it. What happened? So it will tell you who, why, how interacted and left. So it will tell you that, something is, you better watch out, like something is going there, like the same question 3 times and no one is watching. So this is kind of an analytics, advanced analytics, which is helpful for optimization purposes. And then you will see, okay, they're not getting the right answers. Like when they want superhero movie, they are getting some, I don't know, sci-fi. That's why maybe we need to go and like update the knowledge base or
Right.
do something with prompt engineering. It also feedback intelligence tells you if there is like the root cause, like if prompt is not good, all of those metadata we give. But the high level is like user did this question and they left. Why?
That is so cool, and I see how this has applications for literally every LLM powered app. Um, we had a guest on the podcast, Kyle Corbett. He created a company called OpenPipe that makes fine tuning LLMs very easy. And
Mhm.
how it works is it in your code at the code level you import instead of OpenAI you import OpenPipe. It's a drop-in replacement for an OpenAI compatible TypeScript client,
Okay.
and so the code is exactly the same. But what their version does is in parallel it sends a request to your LLM from a user containing a prompt and
Mhm.
gets the response and so on. But also it sends exactly that same query and the logs about it to OpenPipe systems. And then when the LLM responds, it also gets that response. And so you get like logging out of the box. You just get like the user sent this prompt and got this response, and you get millions of those. So then you can fine tune based on those. You can use that as your test and eval data. Um,
Oh,
yes, is does feedback intelligence have a similar system where you just insert a step in between the user and the LLM where feedback intelligence can then capture this data and then use it, or how does it work?
yeah. By the way, OpenPipe, I'll check them out, but they do something interesting. So they log all the like logs, like they gather, consolidate that like input, output, and everything. That's interesting. So what we do is usually our customers, they already log their like input, output, like query response somewhere in
Okay.
Databricks, let's say, or in somewhere in like AWS databases, whatever they store. What they do, they either just through SDK dump that data to feedback intelligence, or with a very simple two code line, they just connect their let's say chatbot or connect or plug in chatbot with feedback intelligence. And whenever there is an interaction, like human user asks something, a query, and then response, we just analyze that. Whenever it's happening one by one, it analyzes either from the stored logs or just in real time. Whenever it's happening, it captures, it does the analysis, it returns the output, and then it shows that in the dashboard.
That is so cool. Okay, so as sort of a prerequisite for the users to be logging their own things.
Yeah.
Um, Awesome. I kind of want to use this now, because it's so smart to understand not particularly what went wrong, but what the user is trying to do. Right? What do they actually want?
Yeah, yeah. And I started to use amplitude and mixed panel analogy because when I was pitching this, I was asking these questions or I was telling what we do. People were like, especially product people, like product managers who are dealing with these like LLM powered products at the moment, they were like, "Oh, this is amplitude for LLM powered products," and it was like, "Oh yes, like it is." I was not a software engineer, that's why like for me, I know what is definitely what is amplitude. That's why I did some research around that, and I was like, yes, in amplitude world, like 10 years ago when these people started to build, or more than 10 years ago, it was all about point and click interactions. Users, you type a URL, you go to a website, you click, you get information. But at the moment, it's all about conversational. Like we are switching from point and click interaction to natural language interaction. And with this, we need to have something like amplitude, but for not click, input field, all of these, but just natural language interaction to analyze that interaction where the challenges are super different. It's not about adapting amplitude, but creating something that will do the same thing.
Yeah, especially since in a chatbot UI or similar, there's it's not like the UX is not the same, right? It's not like if I put this button above the fold, then something's going to happen. It's like there is no button. It's all
Yeah,
like words and nuance.
word. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Words. And chatbot example is, it's super interesting. People are asking that a lot. I'm getting that chatbot, chatbots or conversational AI has been in the market for decades, right? Like we had
Yeah,
that rule-based chatbots. That's very like we have to define. Before, chatbots were rule-based, meaning people were defining rules, intents, like flows where users had to follow. But at the moment, it's not rule based. It's like LLM powered, meaning like user can type whatever they want. Intent can be whatever, like cancel the order, or like I want to change the flight or whatever. There are several things that user can type in different forms. So for me, like cancel the order can be this way. For you, it can be a different sentence, but the meaning, the intention is the same thing.
yeah. That's and I guess understanding that is an entire business model in itself. Can we talk a little bit about failure modes? I think this is really where the meat is, right? Like a lot of the companies and the customers who use feedback intelligence are not, like, I guess we should just call it FI for short,
Mhm.
but are not going to care much for, like, great, this leads to a good outcome, but they're going to care more for, hey, we lost a customer here, which is known as a failure mode. I think the obvious one is, somebody just left. What are some other failure modes that may be more subtle that companies don't yet know are danger scenarios?
Yeah, user churn is definitely like an indicator. The other parameters or like variables that can indicate that something is going wrong is like um, people are asking the same question with follow-ups and several times, like change this, I want this, like style, adding more context and everything. And it means that the conversation is super long. And one of the things that I am seeing, like this solution is super horizontal, from retail to healthcare to fintech to insurance. And the pattern that I'm seeing is these businesses have different success criteria. For retail, when someone is using a conversational AI chatbot, a long conversation doesn't mean that they are happy because they want to buy something, right? Like I go to, let's say, Nike's website. I use the chatbot and I want some sneakers. And here, um, if my conversation is long, I'm not checking out, I'm not buying that. It means that I'm not able to find the thing. Like I'm asking again and again, but it is not able to give me the proper answer. And that's a like um, business specific criteria, success criteria, and indicator. So I wouldn't say that the cool thing about feedback intelligence is that any business depends on the use case where they are. They can, in plain English, define the success criteria that they want, like what matters to
Wow.
their business, and based on that, the whole that interaction will be analyzed. So that's what like defines us, and compared to other solutions in the market, we are very configurable and adaptable solution in terms of analytics, and that's important. What I have seen, that's my learning, and we can compare this to Amplitude as well. In Amplitude, you're able to define events, and when you define events, it is super like relevant to your application, to your website or product. Well, I want to track whether the user spends time in this website and goes to this page, goes to the other page right after that. So that's specific to their use case. Same with feedback intelligence. Businesses like product managers, data scientists, they can define their own like metrics that they want to track and analyze.
That is so. I have to, like, if I think about how this is built, again, we're engineers here, technical people. Is there then behind the scenes at Feedback Intelligence an LLM that's understanding these things? Like, is it LLM powered, or is, like, I guess maybe a more appropriate question is, what percentage of Feedback Intelligence is rule based versus LLM guided?
Oh, that's a very good question. I like that question. What percentage? So the algorithm, the flow that we have implemented, we did some research. This is a very research backed solution. We are not just using some APIs and that's all, but we do use some NLP, very classic NLP. And then we use clustering classification, again, like very machine learning situation there. And then we also use LLMs. And we don't use only one LLM, but we use LLM orchestration, meaning like LLM as a judge approach is a very super cool approach. Bunch of papers out
Can you
there.
quickly describe that for the listeners? Because I know what this is, but I
LLM
think
as
there's
a
some
judge.
people who,
Yeah,
correct, yeah.
yeah. LLM as a judge approach where you ask an LLM to tell you whether the output of other LLM is correct or not, given a context. Like you have a context, and then you say, is this correct? Is this helpful? And give me score. And the thing is that I don't know if you experienced this or not. If you ask the same question to ChatGPT now and then after like twice, it will not give you the same response, right?
Hmm.
Because it's probability based, like, and it predicts words, like, and a bunch of things happening there. And in every interaction, it learns from you. So with this LLM as a judge approach can be biased. It's not so robust. It's not stable. All of these questions are there. And in order to mitigate that, we decided, okay, we will have not only one LLM, but a bunch of LLMs, a couple of LLMs. Of course, after doing some experiments, we are not just taking an LLM and using it in the orchestration, but we use this like OpenAI, Claude, a couple of others, and we orchestrate that, and we kind of use this, I'm trying to remember the term here, where the LLMs are debating and to find the best,
The truth.
the truth. Yeah,
That's sort of like an adversarial neural network, but with LLMs, isn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah. That was one of my projects, GANs, like generative adversarial network. I don't know, like 5 years ago or something, and we were doing that for healthcare, generating like faces for uh, oh my god, plastic surgery, like to change someone's nose, like make it
Wow.
better, etc. Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, so it's a mixture. It's not entirely rule based. There's some natural language,
No,
there's some
yeah,
LLMs.
yeah, it's a mixture. Yeah, definitely it's a mixture. And when I told you, when I told the process of user can define their own like success, like long conversation, short conversation, after this, like these keywords, or flag uh, questions where user is asking XYZ, we use that information in the backend side to kind of, and the process to adapt it, configure it to that specific customer like need.
Interesting. What I mean, it seems to me that there's privacy concerns here, right? Like if there's a company that is using feedback intelligence that maybe isn't comfortable sharing these, but
Yeah.
I guess that's why you mentioned that they are responsible for keeping the logs and sharing what they share with feedback intelligence. So feedback intelligence itself doesn't necessarily like sniff anything like OpenPipe does.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like literally think of Amplitude or Mixpanel. Amplitude says like plugin, like give access and we will analyze and we will give you whatever you give access, we will be able to analyze that. Same with us. So you give that information, you literally can upload that, like drag and drop whatever you want, your interaction data, query, responses, and context, system prompt, whatever you are comfortable to share, you will do that and it will analyze and give you. That privacy thing, it's there, especially when you are dealing with big companies like enterprises, fintech, insurance, like healthcare. They require some certifications like SOC 2, HIPAA, all of this, and we are SOC 2 ready at the moment. But also they also do their checking, like we go through security reviews. So that question is there. But for seed Series A companies, they have their own like criterias, and it's not super difficult. So yeah.
Awesome. That's so. It's nice to know that all your bases are covered. What stage is the company at?
We are seed. Yeah, we are seed stage.
Okay. Wow. So super new.
Super new, yeah. We
Exciting.
started like 10 months ago or something.
Whoa. Okay. And it sounds like you have a lot figured out for such a young company. Um, it
Yeah.
looks like you have a thought here, so I'm gonna let you.
No, not a thought, but uh, I would say that, yeah, we figured out a lot like this 10 months, and we spoke to a lot of folks, experts. They helped us a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, I do want to maybe towards the end we'll talk about like the business side of it because I mean like we have a series of great founders on the podcast and everyone has such a unique story. So I definitely want to touch on that. But I would be remiss if I didn't dive a little bit deeper into feedback intelligence specifically, like the way it's built, right? Because when you have this like LLM orchestration framework that you have internally, um, things can go wrong, right? Like for example, LLMs hallucinate, and if you're doing LLM as judge and the judge hallucinates, right, then you're going to have problems. So like we talked about failure modes for companies that use feedback intelligence, where like there's repeated words, there's customers abandoning the conversation, etc. When you have an internal architecture like what you have at feedback intelligence, how like what are some failure modes there, and how does feedback intelligence enforce some
Yeah.
resiliency? Meaning, in LLM as judge, if one of your LLMs hallucinates, particularly to the judge, like how do you protect
Yeah,
against that?
that's a very good question. That's why with all of these like things that we do, we do use deterministic approach as well, like NLP, classification, clustering, scoring, weighing of all of these like outputs and everything. Definitely, that is a very valid question. Like if we use an LLM to do something, to classify, cluster, or whatever, or as a judge approach here, there is a room. Yeah. That's why we decided for each step, for each output of intent identification, all of this, to have metrics, scores, and do that not with LLMs, but with some deterministic
Awesome.
approaches. Yeah.
Wow. So there, that all of this is very. I understand that some of it is like secret because it gives you a competitive advantage, but it's so interesting. It's like it's a truly AI native company. If
Yeah.
we step like one level above the sort of deep dive we're in with feedback intelligence, at some point this application needs to work for enterprise systems, right? And enterprise systems use tools like Slack Enterprise, Zendesk, Salesforce, and these tools have APIs. Um,
Mm.
does feedback intelligence offer integrate like a connector layer there
Yeah.
for enterprise? Okay, tell me more about that.
Um, that question is like around when we were like implementing feedback intelligence, there were two options here. We saw that companies have this like feedback collection mechanism, thumbs up, thumbs down, or they get information from Slack when things go wrong. Their customers, they ask about that, or Zendesk, all of that. We were thinking that we have to analyze those feedback messages as well. Like explicit. We call it explicit feedback. A user explicitly tells when things go wrong. But also we saw like definitely we of course we use that. If customer has that, we use that information to analyze explicit feedback. But we saw that like users usually less than 10% of users give that feedback, explicit feedback. They give that when things go super wrong. Like they are very unhappy. They are like, this is useless. This kind of feedback messages, and we have seen that. Like one of the prospects that I have, he says like for their AI assistant, one of the users gave a feedback thumbs down with a text, this is useless, and that's not okay. So we definitely use that information, but there is the other side of this integration with Zendesk or Slack. In order to make the output of feedback intelligence actionable across teams, so this is not a dev tool. We are not developer tool. We are a platform that is being used by product managers, business stakeholders, domain experts, internal domain experts, developers as well, data scientists, data analysts, all of these folks. And in order to make the results actionable across teams, we need to have integrations with their like Salesforce or Slack or like Jira, all of this. We do not support at the moment. There are upcoming integrations definitely, but this is something that is important to our like customers because they are already in that stack, like they use Slack and they want to get the output when things go wrong, when someone is asking the same questions like 5 times and they leave the chat, they want to get notification, let's say in Slack or in Jira, automatically log a ticket.
And all of this is done. That's really cool that it's end to end. You mentioned multiple times feedback intelligence makes it actionable, makes the feedback actionable across teams.
Mm-hmm.
How does it do that? Does it give the customer like literally like change this, fix that, update this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really?
That's something that we have been thinking because just a report, a chart, no one cares about that. Like there should be something that tells you, hey, like this is the report. Yes, there are there are 5 topics that are being asked by users very frequently, so you have to see what's happening, and this is the type of error that they are facing, and we have predefined issues, and we also enable our customers to define their domain specific issues that they want to track. All of this is happening, but also we provide a way to like change. We hint them, like we say, they are facing out of context outputs, the customer, the users, because of because some information is missing, like in the context, or the system prompt that you had. We do prompt suggestion as well. We like analyze this whole interaction. We see what kind of issues they are facing, top intents, how many follow-ups do they do, how they frame their question and everything, and then we qualify the system prompt suggesting you can make this kind of improvements, and it might lead to this kind of like improvements. So we do that as well. We also enable them data curation. I told like in the beginning when I was like telling my story in computer vision, data curation is super important. Gathering informative, effective data from outside of world is important. And as we analyze this whole interaction between users and LLM, like the application, users are the best people. Like they know the best what they want, what is their task. So we can unlock that information and use that in data curation process. So we are enabling these like developers to curate data, to generate synthetic data as well. Like that is relevant to that context, to that problem that user is facing. I know this was super long.
No, it's so good. This is why the people listen, and so I so appreciate that. You mentioned customers multiple times. You mentioned you've got some. I assume. Are there any that you're particularly able to talk about? Like, tell us some success stories of, hey, this customer had like thousands of messages in Intercom or Salesforce, and people were unhappy, and they adopted feedback intelligence, and now like everything's automatic.
Yeah, I think one of the customers that we have at the moment I can share. They are in fintech. They have they provide conversational AI to financial experts. The company name is Cognate, so they analyze bunch of unstructured financial documents. They have an application on top of that, and so an expert, financial expert, can filter, extract information just by just asking that AI, conversational AI, and we analyze that huge volume of interaction, like millions of conversations every day between these financial experts and the conversational AI. We also analyze the explicit feedback that they give. These people give when things go wrong, they log something they ask in the Slack or send an email. Besides that, we analyze the interaction. So we saw that we helped them to, like, before, as it was super manual, like when someone was telling, hey, it was a wrong like number, the output was wrong, the engineers, domain experts were going manually analyzing their all like PDFs and everything, understanding what's happening. But after us, like, we just streamline this whole process. We automate this. We tell them whenever things go wrong, we tell them, hey, there is this like financial experts, they are asking about monthly revenue. They changed the question, like, give me monthly revenue, give me MRR, which is the same question. They are not getting the right answer. This is the impact score because there are hundreds other financial experts experiencing this. They also pinged you in the Slack. So, and the reason is that there is a knowledge hole. So we give this whole information in a very
Wow.
cool UI dashboard, and they use that information, and it helped them a lot. Like, on a daily basis, they have this data, and they don't need to go manually analyze, check Excel sheets or logs or anything.
That is one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my entire life. That's so cool. You went from this like large enterprise, highly manual process to actually driving like a positive business outcome. That's incredible. Um, that is so very cool. I'd love to talk a little bit about the business side of feedback intelligence. Are you a first time founder? You mentioned the company had a
Yeah,
name before, but
yeah,
where are we in the founder journey? Is this the first company? Is this the
very first.
16th?
Yeah, very first. This is I'm a very first time founder, so I don't have any business background. I just love solving problems. Especially
Wild.
innovating things, like thinking about problems that are coming from future. Like, yeah, well, when I studied this was for computer vision, like feedback loop problem. In computer vision, we had some hard time because the customer's profile was different. Everything was super different, and but when these LLMs like came out, like, and people started to use that in every vertical for internal efficiency purposes to like external use cases. I saw that this feedback loop problem is way worse there, because this explicit feedback mechanism, like, to gather that information, is not enough. Like, it's less, plus it's biased, and there is a room to solve this problem. That's why we pivoted. Initially, the name was Monot, and we pivoted. We call it now Feedback Intelligence. We did the pivot 10 months ago, 10 months, like almost a year or something like that. We re-implemented the whole algorithm, the product. We launched it. We iterated. We are launching the second iteration like next upcoming Monday. And yeah,
That's in like 4 days.
yeah, 5 days, Monday.
What?
Yes. We are doing that. The team is working super hard, and after this podcast, I need to do some QA stuff. But yeah, we are launching that. We got a design partner. They helped us a lot to build something that is helpful. Like, we didn't just build that. So yeah, we got that. Now we have really, really good pipeline of companies, from scale ups to also like large enterprises. Yeah,
How big is the team?
we are 5 people full time.
Okay, wow. 5 people full time. Incredible. Since this is your first company, I'm curious what the experience is like. A lot of people say, you wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of things. You just mentioned you're going to go QA something. Have you found yourself maybe in the early stages having to do, design and think
Yeah,
about pricing and
yeah,
how was that? Was that scary? Was it? Are you more the kind of person to be like, oh, I'm just gonna do it. I don't care. I'll just do stuff and see what happens.
yeah. I'm like that. Like I just do that. Yeah, I just do that. Whatever I know or I don't know, I just like try to. I find the thing helped me a lot, and it helps me until now. I'm I'm lucky to have all of these people around me. I can just reach out to a lot of folks, like go to market folks or people who have done this, who have built companies. That having that support is important, so you learn fast. Like, of course, you do a lot of things by your own. You fail, you learn. Oh, next time I'll do this another way, but also you have that support. You can ask people. That was very important, especially in a very early days when like when people ask me like send me your pitch deck, like when that pitch deck term was there, I really googled that. I was like, what is pitch deck? Because I'm coming from academia, like I have done a lot of presentations. It's just a presentation for me. And pitch deck, oh okay, then it's like it's sort of presentation, but it has a certain structure. We have to follow that. We have to business model, go to market, all of that. But you learn that, and I like this a lot. Yeah, this is cool.
Do you find yourself work? I've talked to many founders, especially early stage founders on the podcast, and some people say the founder's job, especially the founder CEO, the technical founder CEO's job, is never over. You're constantly thinking about, oh, but if I change this messaging, oh, but if I have this meeting, oh, if I and they express a difficulty in focusing or shutting off, like when you're at the hairdresser,
Mhm.
you're still thinking about this or that. Has that been your experience, or do you have a structure to just be like, nope, now is break time?
Oh no, no, like break time. Oh my God, no. Like you constantly think about things. Like during this podcast, I was thinking about a follow up that I have to do. I was thinking about I just remembered that I haven't like follow up with this person. So you constantly think about other things, even though you have to focus. That's something that is hard, and also like, but it's good. Like it means that you are on track. Like you think about everything. Um, yeah, that's there. Yeah, you wear many hats. You change. You constantly are thinking about changing, iterating. You are always like, we launched the new website, the new content like a week ago or something, but like yesterday I was thinking, no, this hero, like the first two sentences, we have to change this. Like really, there is something that is missing here. But we just launched it, and I
Wow.
don't know. Like I like this.
Yeah.
Maybe there are folks that, but I think any founder likes this. Like it's a founder. If you don't like
Mentality.
this, yeah, yeah, it's a founder mentality.
How do you prioritize your first 10 enterprise features? I know a lot of people, this is a big problem with most early startups.
Yeah.
It's like you said, you're wearing many hats, you're doing many things, you're sitting in this podcast and thinking about, I didn't follow up. And so scatterbrain is a thing with early
Mhm.
stage startups, right? And so given that everything's sort of cloudy, at some point you've got to go, okay, but we really have to have like priorities here, and these are
Yeah.
important. And like
Yeah.
I've spoken to people who literally run AWS, like very senior executives at Amazon Web Services, and for them, it's very easy. They just follow the money. They're like, okay, who's our biggest customer? We're just going to do
Mhm.
whatever they want first, and then if Tejas wants something, we'll think about him, but he doesn't pay very much, so who
Yeah.
cares? I don't know if you have that hierarchy of customers yet to help you prioritize, but I'm curious. It's such
Mhm.
an early startup with all the chaos. How do you come up with a list of things that are just we need this in this order?
That's a very good question. I think for us, for this market and the product we are building, this market, this LLM powered product market, it's super early. Like the companies who are building these things, like conversational AI, chatbot, AI assistant, voice assistant, they are like less than 1 year like old, or like let's say 2 years, but it's not the case. And with these companies, when you interact with them, you are not just, like trying to, they are not saying their problem. You have, like, sometimes I'm feeling that I'm a consultant here. Like, as I'm technical, I'm trying to understand, okay, you do this, why you do this? Like, maybe you can change this way. Maybe in this sales process, we are sales and building, like customer development and product development. I love, there is a book, in fact, it is called Four Steps to the Epiphany. It is telling about, it's not about product development or customer development separately. It's about customer and product development together. And this is the right now we are in that process. We go to these companies, we talk to them, we understand their like flow, and we are coming up with a proposal. We are saying, guys, what if you do this? And if we see a pattern, let's say 10, more than 20, we talk, like, this is very important. I speak to a lot of, like, at least every day, 2 conversations with experts. It doesn't mean that they will be customers, but I just try to understand their day-to-day job. They are not a customer now, but they will be in 6 months or whatever. This helps a lot to understand what is that product that will solve these problems, like the people that we are talking to. So these are this is the prioritization part with the product, new features, and we don't have a roadmap. I'm saying this, we just listen, we just like, okay, we need to change this, we need to prioritize this, and yeah.
Wow. So it's really customer driven. It's
Yes.
literally just built out of that is so great. You know, I've been part of some really early startups where we were too early for customers. We didn't have any.
Mm-hmm.
And this was crazy. Like the decision matrix was just a free for all. It's like some CTO says we need this, some senior engineer says we need that, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like who wins, and nobody wins. And then some weird power struggle ensues.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Did you like pre-customer? If a company doesn't have any customers, what then? Do you just keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks?
Um, that's 2 things. First, you have to learn, you have to ask questions, you have to think about, well, you define those, like, questions, and also the topic that you want to talk to a, a customer, potential customer. Let's say you go, he's a director of AI, head of data at a company where they build a chatbot. You can ask about their retrieval system. You can ask about their, I don't know, optimization process. But what you want to get out of that call, the whole process, what they do, what are the most like 3 challenges that they face, and then uh, you go, like, you ask more questions around that, you double down there, why this is like a challenge for you. Like, imagine you are a doctor, someone is coming and they say, like, I'm not able to walk. You start asking, like, when you are not able to walk, when you stand up, it's like
Right.
around me, like here, like when for me, it's like when they say something like negative, like, this is super like hard, or it was hard to say, oh, perfect. Hard? Why it was hard? How much was that? When it was hard? After what? Like, you just double down there. You ask a lot of questions, and that helps a lot with this iteration. And then you see, oh, there are patterns across this type of companies. When they build an LLM chatbot, they deploy it in production, and they have usage, and usage is more than, let's say, 100 questions every day. With this, you come up with you narrow down. So you go, you have a huge, like, this funnel, and then, narrow down, and you come up with
That's so
a
cool.
problem and a
It's also,
feature.
So it's if you're pre-customer, it's discovering your customers. It's
Yeah.
like this person is probably going to be a customer. I just want to talk to them and see what they have to say. That so I googled your 4 steps to the epiphany, which thank you for that, by the way. It gives a really great framework.
Yeah.
It's by Steve Blank, I believe,
Yeah.
and so these, in case anyone's interested, which I was extremely interested, these are the 4 steps: customer discovery, which you just mentioned, customer validation. So then you listen to, like you said, you listen to like where does the leg hurt, and then you validate it by probably like hitting them on the leg with a little hammer. Doctors do that sometimes. Customer validation, and finally customer creation. So you validate their idea, and then you build something. And this is where sort of like customer and company intersect, right? Because you create at that point a company and a product, and then finally you build your products and your companies. So that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so extreme. I think people listening here probably haven't heard of that before, and it's going to be so valuable for them.
It's a very cool book. I really like I read books. I'm not the at the moment I don't read, but I have been reading a lot of books. That is one book that I really like.
Fantastic. I'm about to drop a fairly difficult question on you.
Okay.
Which it's difficult because it's vague. It's very open. And I've had some founders on the podcast struggle to answer because they go like, I have no idea. Can you give me examples? Like they ask like follow-up questions. But I want to see how it works with you. Some time ago, I was with a bunch. I spend a lot of time with founders. I might become one just because of the disease. I'll catch the disease, from all of you. And they were sort of feeling tired and defeated. They were like, "Man, this never stops." And and I asked them, or rather, we started getting this idea for a document of sorts. Like, for example, the programming language HTML or CSS. Like, programming languages in general are like just big specification documents. They're like, this keyword means this. This is a function. It's a big specification, and these are called living standards. They change over time, right? If there was such a document, a living standard for the founder, that just has like things that you should expect, things that you maybe should know going into it, things that you maybe have learned on the job or you can expect to learn. If there was like a specification document for the technical founder, what is an item on this document that you would put there given your experience with feedback intelligence?
Mhm. That's a very good question. Thank you for the question. So I would say, as a technical founder, as a technical people, we think that it's all about technology, but it is not about technology. It is about the problem that you solve. Yes, if it's about the problem and then the solution, and then the solution contains technology and everything. And for the technical founders, at least for me, it was it was that experience. It's not about having a cool technology. No, maybe like there's this thing they say, like, build something that people want. Like, it's very much there. And for me, it was like when I started this everything, it was about computer vision, and then I realized, and we implemented very cool solution. Like, benchmarks were great, everything, and still we have that, and we re-implemented that. But initially, in the first year, a bit more, we were very much struggling to sell that in the market. There was a problem, but people were like, they didn't want that to use that in computer vision. So the first thing that I would say, it's not about having a cool technology, it's about solving a business problem. Um, the second thing is, you're getting a lot of no's, a lot. Like, everyone is just saying no. They're just saying, everyone from investors to customers. And one thing helps me a lot with customers, just to understand why they say no. Like, be curious about that no. Like, in the sales process, um, maybe this is the third one, and I'll just merge these two, like getting no's and the sales process. We do not like sales, like technical, like people, they are not salesy. We do not like these, like, exaggeration, all of these words, like super fast, amazing, very intuitive. These words are like it's just a product, right? It solves this XYZ, that's all. But and And while doing this, I used to hate sales. Like when I was going to these sales calls, I was like, no, I don't want this. But then one by one, and after reading that book, that discovery process and everything, you are just showing curiosity. Like you are asking, you are not selling. At early stages, you are not selling anything. You are still figuring out the problem, and then you are also figuring out the solution. So these are the three learnings that I got. These no's, you're gonna get a lot of no's. Everyone, the whole world will say no, and you have to be ready. And that was hard. And the sales process, just be curious, get the no, especially with this like customers. If they say no, that's good. Like learn from that. Like just be curious, learn from that, and use that information for other conversations.
How do you not lose heart though after getting so many no's? At some point, is it not like so defeating where like everyone just says no to me? Maybe I should just stop.
Oh, okay. I swear, I never thought about stopping this. And whenever I get a no, of course, there are moments it's like, it's hard, like everyone, like, especially when you get, especially in fundraise process, you get a lot of no's in a row, like, and it's hard. But you have to have your conviction why you do this. If you have that answer, if you believe, if you truly like can see that it's there, like it's either about timing, it's either, yeah, you just use that information, use that no, like always whenever people say something, try to that's kind of another learning, four learnings in fact, to your question, be able to distill all of these, like, because when people say no, they say, oh, you are early, I don't see a go to market. It's that this is the classic one, like this is say, um yeah, you distill that information. There are no's that are important, like there are no's not important in terms of you have to give up, no, just like what's happening there, like use that information and then move on and continue doing, just do it.
Just do it. I think this sort of
No.
echoes Paul Graham's note about founder mode, which is it's almost
Mhm.
like a mindset thing. Like I think a founder, or maybe a successful founder, just hears the no's and goes like, "Thanks," and then tries to understand it, and maybe even sees it as a challenge. But you
Mhm.
can't let that stop you.
No, no, yeah. If a no will stop you, it means that you are not ready. Like, I guarantee I have got like no's. I have got no's from the same person several times, but I still go to them. I still talk to them. I
Wow.
still, yeah, like, but it's good. It's like, yeah, it was no, okay, good.
I take a lot of inspiration from cal.com. You maybe have used cal.com for yourself. I think to schedule this episode we use cal.com
Mhm.
definitely. So it's a great tool. It's open source.
Mhm.
The reason I bring that up is cal.com now has cal.ai, which uses language models. So maybe that's a customer of yours, or
Yes.
will be. Um, but they are adding multimodal LLM power to their application, and by that I mean you can
Mhm.
call a phone number and be like, "Hey, book an appointment for tomorrow at whatever," and then an LLM with a voice interface will do that, and will also tell you if someone's busy or free, etc. I'm curious how this translates to feedback intelligence in the sense of, I think multimodal um, Gen AI is growing, right? Like there's more voice assistants than before. Feedback intelligence you mentioned works for LLM based applications, but so far we've only talked about like text based input. What's the plan there with multimodal feedback and feedback intelligence?
Um, yeah, of course, like that's the next thing. I mean, that's happening already. Voice agents are everywhere. And yeah, we don't have any issues. We are very compatible. So voice is like text as well. Like they have like transcripts. So we analyze that super easily. Like the same algorithm, literally the same, works for voice. So we have a customer in customer support agent, and it's voice, so we support that.
Wow. What about video?
We haven't tested it out. No video yet, but I like we all we already solved vision problem before the pivot. So for us, like switching to like video, language, all of this will be very easy. Video is also coming. I think later this year we will have some applications, use cases there.
Listening to you, I'm convinced everything is super easy, and I should just do the thing. That's what it feels like. Um,
Uh, it's. I mean, if you look back, it was hard, but I mean, it depends how you quantify the how hard it is, right? Compared to what,
yeah, yeah.
right?
I mean, yeah. But like, I think the reason I bring this up is a lot of people like listening to the podcast, myself included. Sometimes, if it's a bad day, we have self doubt. We go like, oh yeah, that could be really complex. Oh, maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Oh, maybe. But like, I think that also means you're probably not ready, as you said earlier. If a
Mhm.
no sets you back, you're probably not ready. And I think that's I really admire. I've witnessed you multiple times in this conversation just say like, yeah, it's probably not going to be hard. Let's just do it. And I think that's very very cool. Let's wrap up here. I have two final questions for you about feedback intelligence and its future. Number one, what is at this point in time the
Mhm.
absolute hardest thing at feedback intelligence? And I want to prime this question a little bit because we've had I've mentioned before, we've had a series of founders, and
Mhm.
many of them building very 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 complex products. And they often say, I think majority of the founders on the podcast say, yes, we're building technically very complex products, but the hardest thing for them was positioning and messaging, was literally marketing. It was not at
Mhm.
all anything to do with engineering. So with that context, what is the hardest problem at feedback intelligence right now?
Um, I think yeah, messaging and marketing part is the current challenge. Technically, from engineering point of view, the product is ready, everything is ready. We have early adopters, we have validation, we have like now we need to have a proper messaging and marketing presence to make this repeatable and scalable. So until now, what I have been doing with the team, with all of these like advisors, people who support us so much, we were just doing this like outbound sales, talking to people, like validating. Still, we do that, but at this point, what we are seeing, the the current challenge, at least for 2025, will be making sure that we have a very good messaging and marketing presence out there. That's what we work on at the moment.
That's bananas. That every founder, literally like 90th percentile, everyone has exactly the same issue. Um, I'm actually working on a side project slash startup that helps with this because it's such a common problem, and we can maybe talk after because
Yeah.
it's yeah, literally everyone has it. And then okay, the last question for the podcast. What's next? You mentioned the hardest problem is marketing messaging. Is this also the next problem, or is there? You
It
mentioned you
is.
don't have a roadmap, so okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. At the moment, like 2024, the next like thing, 2024 is all about getting the name out at scale, just like everywhere
Do you mean
from,
2025?
yeah, from let's say webinars to events, integrations, partnerships, podcasts. That's why I'm doing this. Just
Nice.
yeah, just get the name out there and at scale, like make it repeatable because like just just this is also what I'm seeing in this market where these like LLM things are. It's more about education, thought leadership, because a lot of things people do not, and that's okay because we just started to create this everything,
Yeah.
right? Like these agents are coming out, people are starting to use, and there should be some education. There are things that they don't know, which is okay. So you have to have really good educational content, and that works well. You just need to make it repeatable. That's all.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I tell you what, you've definitely been um, an educational blessing to all the listeners of the podcast. I mean, you showed up and immediately started telling us about how to build end-to-end AI products in such a fine level of detail. And between that and your business insights, Chinar, listen, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast
Thank you
on
so
behalf
much.
of myself and all the listeners. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your contributions today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I enjoyed this.
Thank you for joining my discussion with Chinar Movsisyan. I hope you learned a ton like I did, and I can't wait to see what you build with this knowledge you've gained. If you're learning from and or enjoying this content, a great way to support it is to, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, then if you leave a review up of anything really up to 5 stars, it would help surface this on the algorithm. And of course, you can really help surface this on the algorithm by just sharing it with your friends on social media. Links on any social media platform would be great. Of course, that's only if you believe this is content worth sharing. So with that, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. And most importantly, thank you for your interest in engineering.